a serious matter. For all the citizen leader and butter. Watch this. Kacheno pass kanyi wele zaba kule mbeze. Kiwele zene kwa babe simbawo. Boba wasala wone we simbawo. Chitegezoli na kumageza katusindako. Toda kukatuti kuboma bovuganya. Wabola tutabile tumatile tusalewo. Yukila bemukola na febye tukola. Wewe monene nganeno mulilo kwe mukuma. Chekukasa chinga kumulilo kukumye. Atenole kanga fabalonzi tutingana. Bagala Uganda ya femwe mjikuze. Gamutu katate mutawula. Sabe kuba kulonda tugende tulonde naye. Obululu tebutwawula. Tube mukuyomba olabo wabesimbawo. Obululu tebutwawula. Fe tuba tuyomba kananga boba sachemu. Obululu tebutwawula. Ebyo kulonda bitwana yatepe tusigalawo. Obululu tebutwawula. Sede muwanga wagira mulala tenange mpagira mulala. Obululu tebutwawula. Nayatebwe bituka mu mako bululu butakubali. Obululu tebutwawula. Ne tata wanga wagira mulala ne mama wagira mulala. Obululu tebutwawula. Nayatebwe bituka mu mako bululu butakubali. Obululu tebutwawula. Mukwano wanga wagira mulala tenange mpagira mulala. Obululu tebutwawula. Bas.
Ethnic warfare at its most basic and most brutal. A man being murdered because he belongs to a gang from a different tribe.
Serious matter this. A dedication to all them leaders and the voters. Sensitization to avoid a bloody situation in this lovely nation. Listen to the entertainment. This is a serious matter.
Good morning, dear listeners. Here is the morning 11 o'clock news. Read to you by Brian Wandera. Today is the 13th of the 1st of January 2026, and here is the 11 o'clock news as read to you by Wandera Brian. But before, let's have the prime sponsors of our news. We have Misango Grain Miller, Oasis Quality Bakery, Eldet Senior Secondary School, located in Budompangala, Eldet Primary School, located in Bukoto. But before, let's have the news headlines. Local news headline: Sugarcane farmers accuse millers. Magogo declared unopposed in Budiope. Court dismisses Semakade's bid to held. Fishermen welcome Marine Brigade. Treasury releases 17 trillion shillings. Prayers held for Kiza BSJ. Woman dies in stampede for NRM. International news headline: Referee and students among hundreds killed. Feed chair power hits out unprecedented. Match blocks 505,000 counts and under Australia. Thousands of tourists stranded. And here the news in detail. When I take you to Ginger, sugarcane farmers accuse millers of defying government price directive. The farmers described the price reductions as unfair and exploitive. Sugarcane farmers in Busoga sub-region have accused the millers of defying the government's directive on the minimum price of sugarcane, noting that the price is pushing growers into losses despite raising production costs. The government recently set a temporary minimum price of 125,000 per ton to protect farmers, but many say it remains too low, and some millers are still buying it at 105,000. Mr. Hassan Ngobi, a sugarcane farmer in Mayoga district, described the reductions as unfair and exploitative. We invest heavily in land preparation, labor and inputs, yet when harvest comes, the millers dictate prices, even though the government stepped into to set the minimum price, he said. Mr. Gobi Kabugo, another farmer, said the absence of a farmer state-owned mill is fueling exploitation in the region. 125,000 is still too low. With the 18-month production cycle, the investment is high, yet farmers need at least 180,000 to break even. Because of poverty, many are forced to sell early, sometimes for less than 120,000, he said. We leave Ginger side, we come back to here where Magogo declared unopposed in Budiope East MP race. What you need to know, the development follows the High Court's decision to uphold the Electoral Commission ruling disqualifying Mr. Daniel Murile from the race. Beyond the district election running officer, Mr. George William Eria, has announced that they will not be voting for the directly elected member of parliament for Budiope East in Biende district. The incumbent and NRM flag bearer, Mr. Moses Hashim Mamgogo, has been declared unopposed following the withdrawal of his opponents. The High Court has upheld the EC decision to disqualify candidate Mulire. This leaves the incumbent Moses Hashim Magogo of the NRM as the sole candidate, and as a result, there will be no election for the directly elected member of parliament for Budiope East. Voting will only take place for the presidential and women MP positions, Mr. Eria said in a media message to the voters of Biende. Leaving that aside, court dismisses Semakade's bid to hold trial over alleged insults against Abodo. What we need to know, Semakade is charged with the offense of indecently insulting a woman contrary to section 115, section 3 of the Penal Code Act. The Chief Magistrate's Court at Buganda Road has dismissed an application by the Self-Exiled Uganda Law Society, President Isaac Kimezi Semakade, seeking to hold criminal proceedings against him. In a ruling delivered by the former Chief Magistrate Ronald Kaizi, held that the application for stay of proceedings was fatally defective and that mere filing of a constitutional petition does not automatically suspend criminal trials unless expressed ordered by the Constitutional Court. This court finds that the initial application for stay of criminal proceedings is fatally defective and incompetent. Mr. Kaizi ruled, adding that even on merit, the application would still fail. As we continue with more news, fishermen welcome Marine Brigade 155 as FPU exists. What you need to know about this story, the 155 Marine Battalion will be commanded by Major Joseph Sebukera, while the overall UPDF Marines Brigade will be under the command of Brigadier Michael Nyura. Fishing communities in eastern and central Buganda have welcomed the deployment of Marine Brigade 155 to Uganda's water bodies, saying the new arrangement offers hope for improved fish conservation and fairer management of fishing activities. Still in the marine, President Museveni has disbanded the Fisheries Protection Unit (FAPU) and formed the 155 Marine Battalion, which will work with committees of local fishing communities and investors, replacing the FPU's former role. The 155 Marine Battalion will be commanded by Major Joseph Sebukera, while the overall PDF Marines Brigade will be under the command of Brigadier Michael Nyura. The President has tasked the Deputy Chief of Defense Forces and Inspector General DCDF, Lieutenant General Sam Okiding, together with the Chief of Defense Intelligence and Security, Major General Richard Otto, to oversee the formation of the new landing site committees within a period of 3 months. As we continue with more local news, Treasury releases 17 trillion for third quarter of the year. What you need to know, accounting officers have been asked to prioritize and fast-track program implementation or risk sanctions. The Ministry of Finance has said government spending on public services remains on track despite the ongoing election season. AFPA after the Treasury released 16.570 trillion to fund activities in the third quarter of the 2025-2026 financial year, officials say there has been no diversion or shortfall of funds for either recurrent or development programs, with all activities approved in the national budget continuing as planned and aligned to be the fourth national development plan. Recurrent expenditure caters for day-to-day government operations such as salaries and maintenance, while development expenditure supports long-term investments in infrastructure, health, education, and other growth-enhancing sectors. Speaking during the Quarter 3 expenditure release on January 9th, the Permanent Secretary and the Secretary to the Treasury, Mr. Ramadan Gobi, urged accounting officers to prioritize and fast-track program implementation. As we leave that aside, prayers held for Dr. Kanokiza BSJ ahead of the polls of 2026. What you need to know about this news: the prayers held at BSJ Kasangati's home in Wakiso district brought together opposition leaders, families of detainees, religious leaders, and supporters who called for the release of political prisoners and peaceful elections. Special prayers were held yesterday for jailed veteran opposition leader Dr. Kanokiza BSJ and other political prisoners amid mounting criticism of what opposition figures described as escalating repression ahead of Thursday's elections. The prayers held at BSJ's Kasangati home in Wakiso district brought together opposition leaders, families of detainees, religious leaders, and supporters who called for the release of the political prisoners and peaceful elections. Miss Winnie Banyima, Dr. BSJ's wife, said the political parties could come to an end if anything is taken in accordance. As we continue with more news, woman dies in stampede for NRM t-shirts in Soroti district. What we need to know about this news: Ajiko, a mother of 4, was among hundreds of NRM supporters who had been ferried from villages in Kamuda to attend a campaign rally. A 20-year-old woman, Rose Ajiko, has died in a stampede in the Soroti district while struggling for President Museveni's NRM t-shirts delivered by the Soroti County MP Patrick Ayeku. Ajiko, a mother of 4, was among hundreds of NRM supporters who had been ferried from the villages in Kamuda to attend the campaign rally for Ayeku at Amnate Primary School. The incident happened on Saturday, January 10, 2026. It is here that suddenly the crowd of the NRM supporters who were struggling to pick the NRM t-shirts trampled onto her after she had fallen down. By the time we managed to pick her from the crowd, she was struggling for her life. Shortly on her way to Soroti Regional Referral Hospital, she was pronounced dead, said Sarah Ahibo, Ajiko's sister-in-law. And this makes the end of the local news. We head to international news. For international news, Timothée Chalamet was among the main winners as Hollywood's finest gathered for this year's Golden Globe Awards. Chalamet, 30, continued his pursuit of greatness and an Oscar by beating stars including Leonardo DiCaprio and George Clooney to the award for the Best Actor in a Musical or Comedy for Table Tennis Cup Mount Separate. Still in more international news, a referee and a student are among hundreds of people reportedly killed during massive anti-government protests in Iran. Coach Amir Muhammad Kohan 26, was hit by live ammunition on 3rd January during a protest in the town of Neriz, his friend told BBC Persian. Everyone knew him for his kindness, they said, adding his family is grieving and angry because he was killed by the regime. 5 days later, student Rubain Aminam, 23, was shot from behind during a protest in Tehran. According to human rights groups, she said she fought for things she knew were right, her uncle told CNN. Nearly 500 protesters and 48 security personnel have been killed in 2 weeks of protest, US-based rights groups say. Still, as we continue for international news, Fed Chair Paul hits out at unprecedented probe by U.S. Justice for Department. Federal prosecutors have opened a criminal investigation into Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell, he said on Sunday. In a highly unusual move, Powell disclosed that the U.S. Department of Justice served the agents with subpoenas and threatened a criminal indictment over testimony he gave to a Senate committee about renovations to Federal Reserve buildings. Calling the probe unprecedented, Paul said he believed it was open due to Donald Trump's anger over the Fed's refusal to cut interest rates despite repeated public pressure for the president. Trump said he did not know anything about the investigation which has been conducted for a comment. As we continue with more international news, Meta blocks 550,000 accounts under Australia's social media ban. About 550,000 accounts were blocked by Meta during the first days of Australia's landmark social media ban for kids. In December, a new law began requiring that the world's most popular social media sites, include Instagram and Facebook, stop Australians aged under 16 from having accounts on their platforms. The ban, which is being watched closely around the world, was justified by the campaigners and the government as necessary to protect children from harmful content and algorithms. Companies, including Meta, have said they agree more is needed to keep young people safe online. However, they continue to argue for other measures, which some experts raising similar concerns. As we come to the end of the international news, thousands of tourists stranded in Lapland as cold grounds flights. Thousands of tourists have been stranded in Finland's Lapland as a severe cold spell has grounded flights out of one of its airports. Departures from Lapland's Kitala airport that will have ferried winter travelers back to places like London, Bristol, Manchester, Paris, and Amsterdam were all cancelled on Sunday as temperatures did not go above 35 degrees Celsius on Sunday. The issue is expected to continue on Monday as a low of 39 degrees Celsius is co-forecast by Finland's meteorological agency. The first flight of the Kitala has already been cancelled. The extreme cold makes it hard to dice planes while maintenance and refueling equipment on ground can freeze. Dear listeners, this marks the end of the international and local news. Let's go for a commercial break. As we return, we come back for sports, local